So Ajit Pai had signed the repeal of net neutrality rules, and now they are coming into effect. So as soon as those rules came into effect, here we had 22 different state attorneys general launching a lawsuit aimed at stopping these rules from being rescinded. Now, this is awesome. New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, according to The Hill, who's leading the suit along with other state attorneys generals, had launched this lawsuit. Now, you might be asking, well, wait a minute, weren't they suing them before? This is actually a new lawsuit. They refiled it because now their order is eligible for a legal challenge. Before, since the rules were not put out, the rules were not official, they weren't actually able to go anywhere legally. Now, we have a real challenge. We have a legal challenge. Now, their lawsuit hinges on something called the Administrative Procedures Act. Now, they argue that this prevents the FCC from arbitrary and capricious redactions to existing policy. Now, they say that the FCC's new rule fails to justify the Commission's departure for its longstanding policy and practice of defending net neutrality. So that's what it was put in there. So net neutrality is an interesting thing. It's actually more of a conservative principle. Basically, we're not going to touch the internet. We're going to keep everything the same. We're going to keep everything equal. We're not going to touch it. We're not going to do government over-regulation of the internet. But we're also not going to let the internet companies do whatever the hell they want. We're going to keep it neutral. We're going to keep it equally accessible to everybody. Like I said, that is more of a conservative principle, and it's something that net neutrality, look, most of the country actually agrees with. So now it continues. The FCC, as I said, the new rules fail to justify the Commission from its policy of defending net neutrality while misinterpreting and disregarding critical record evidence on industry practices and harm to consumers and businesses. So look, what they reference is there were companies, and this is the reason, like, a lot of net neutrality opponents are like, we didn't need net neutrality before Tom Wheeler put it in, so why do we need it now? Well, it just pointed out that there were industry practices that were going on pre-net neutrality where these companies were actively breaking the spirit of net neutrality. Now, before, it was sort of a non-binding agreement, right? Like an understanding, like, no, this is the rule of the internet. We're not going to police it too much. You know, we're not going to, we're basically going to make sure that ISPs treat all content equally. That was again, that was a long-standing, unofficial rule. Well, these companies were like, they found out they can make an extra buck by going and putting in things like data caps and being able to throttle people and try to set up certain fast lanes. That is why we put net neutrality into place. That's why we pushed so hard during the Obama administration to get somebody who we didn't expect to protect net neutrality, Tom Wheeler, to be able to put in these protections. Thankfully, pressure actually worked, and we did get net neutrality protections. So, nonetheless, we saw what happened. Now that Trump's in office, he put in Ajit Pai. Ajit Pai is a Verizon lobbyist and has taken a lot of money and sided with the industry a great many times, the telecommunications industry. So that's why we have the rules that we have, or that's why they're rescinding the rules. Now, along with the attorneys general, a couple of companies also stepped up. This is one side. This is one story where we actually have corporations on our side. Mozilla and Vimeo also refiled their suits intended to protect those rules, to preserve those rules. So we got to see if Google decides to get in there as well. Netflix and some of the other things that were also on our side before, if they are still on our side or not. Because basically right now, Netflix is big enough to be able to be just fine under net neutrality rule, or without net neutrality, along with these other big companies. But nonetheless, we'll see if they're still committed to net neutrality. So, look, this is good news. This is one of the efforts that are there that are fighting to reaffirm net neutrality. Now, the ISPs, of course, they don't like this. They're going to fight against this. They're more than happy with Ajit Pai and his decisions. In fact, a lot of these decisions are very, very pro-industry, which, of course, makes them very happy because, hey, man, they paid a lot to put Ajit Pai there in lobbying. But look, we've got 22 states now. And there's another way that we're fighting for net neutrality rules, and that's, of course, the Congressional Review Act. Now, we are one vote shy of being able to use the Congressional Review Act, and that would involve getting Republicans on board. Now, Republicans, you guys like free speech, right? Well, how would you like the owners of Comcast, which is NBC Universal, which also owns MSNBC? Would you like them controlling your internet speeds for your websites? They can block and throttle your website at will. There's nothing stopping them without net neutrality. Now that net neutrality rules are gone, there's nothing stopping these companies from coming after your right-wing websites. They can slow down and throttle Breitbart. They can slow down and throttle Google, YouTube, which is the home of a lot of right-wing channels. InfoWars, for example. They can slow that down. They can slow down or throttle whatever the hell they want. And they're going to go after right-wing sites first. And then, of course, they'll come after left-wing sites as well that are anti-corporate. So can you think of any channels that are critical of corporations that you may enjoy? Just asking. But look, Republicans, of course they don't want that. I already know the answer. That's why a majority of Republican voters are pro-net neutrality. In fact, there was a poll back in December taken from the University of Maryland's Program for Public Consultation. Now, the survey presented respondents with detailed arguments from both supporters and opponents of Ajit Pai's repeal plan before asking them where they stood on the rules. They found that 83% overall favored keeping the FCC rules of net neutrality. That included 3/4 of Republicans. Now, again, you've got 3/4 of Republican voters that are in favor of net neutrality rules, but no Republican politicians joining with not only these 22 states. Again, you have a lot of states that are controlled by Republicans, that have a Republican governor, Republican Senate and the House, a Republican legislator, and you also have Republican senators that could join in the effort to call for the Congressional Review Act. Why are they not there? Why are they not there? Gee, I wonder why. It's because they represent the cable companies. They don't care about free speech. They don't care about ideology. No. All they care about is money. And they happen to have gotten a lot of money from the telecommunications industry in order to deregulate it so that they can make more money. They are corrupt to the core, and they do not represent you. They do not represent your interests. Now, that said, you still might be able to push them long enough because it doesn't matter how much money they have. They still kind of need you to reelect them. So if you push them far enough, they might be willing to go and support congressional review. Look, I'm not saying that this is going to happen. This is going to be a hard fight, right? But there could be enough, and I say this loosely, principled Republicans left that might actually help you win on this issue. Again, faint hope, but at least it's something. But this should show you that the fight for net neutrality is far from over. In fact, it has just begun. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.